Hello, I'm Vince Pizzat, and today we're going to go over the daily component and work area checklist. So the first thing on our checklist is the air compressor. Let's get over here to it. So today we have a air compressor rented from Sunbelt Rentals. We want to make sure it's fully maintained, serviced, and fueled to start at any job. Typically Sunbelt has a record of the last time the equipment was maintenance, so you know that it's good to go for in the field. So you always want to make sure that your compressor is located upwind and away from your blasting area. You don't want exhaust blowing back this way into the intake, blowing into the breathing air setup. That's how you get CO into your breathing air. The next thing is our supply air bull hose. So here's our bull hose. We have our safety pins, our whip checks. The coupling gaskets are in place. We've already checked this. And we've already mentioned coupling pins, which are in place as well. From there, we move on to moisture control. If you follow the bull hose over, we get to the air dryer. Again, safety pins and whip checks. And what the air dryer is responsible for is taking that hot, wet air from your air compressor, cooling it down, and stripping the moisture out of it so you're blasting with cool, dry air. And from there, it takes us to blast machine. So you want to make sure on pneumatic versions that your twin lines are free of leaks, tied properly. They're not going to snag on anything when you go to yank the blast hose when you're blasting. You want to make sure your blasting metering valve is properly adjusted. And on a Thompson valve 2 like this, you want to close the valve all the way down to the closed position. And with the standard garnet mesh, you want to open it up 3.5 to 4 1/4 turns. So it'll be 2 full revolutions, 3 revolutions and 1/4, or 4 1/4. And somewhere in between there is a good starting point. That's going to get you a pretty good blasting pattern. We have our lid and screen. The lid keeps the abrasive dry. The screen has a mesh on it, which keeps any debris from getting inside the vessel and clogging up the metering valve. And from here, we go to our coupling gasket. We make sure that we have it checked. It's in good standing condition, and our safety pins are in place. It's very important. Again, safety whip check. From there, it moves us on to a blast abrasive. So as you see here, it's getting ready to rain. It's a gloomy day. If your abrasive is stored outside, you want to make sure it's tarped. You cannot use wet abrasive in a dry blasting setup. From there, it takes us to our blast hose. You always want to make sure you keep your blast hose as straight as possible. You don't want to have it coiled up here and then using it over here. You want to run it out for big, straight, slow, gradual turns. And you want to keep it as short as possible. You don't want to have an extra length of blast hose on there when you don't need it. That's just going to rob the PSI and pressure from the blast nozzle itself. And you always want to check your gaskets. Gaskets do wear out. Typically they only last a few days when you're blasting heavy blasting. We do sell high pressure gaskets that last a lot longer and keep your couplings from leaking. So that takes us to a remote control handle, or a Deadman handle, or some guys call it a trigger. Let's get over here and check it out. On this blasting setup today, we're going to use your Schmidt style Deadman handle. It has a safety here, so you'd have to push in the safety and then squeeze the Deadman handle to blast. It will not let you squeeze the trigger with the safety being out. So if you drop the hose or anything, the safety will kick the trigger off and it'll shut it down so you don't get harmed. Deadman handle is hooked in with twist locks. They'll be taped all the way down the hose, all the way to the blast machine. And let's go check out how it's powered. We use standard battery clips, 3-pin twist lock, and that supplies our electric solenoid with power. From there, we hook in our Deadman handle, which follows all the way to the blast handle. You always want to check that for cracks, wear points. Guys, it'll get hung up in their blasting and they just try to pull the heavy hose, not realizing, but you yank the Deadman cord. That could put a hole in pneumatic lines or rip open electric ones. So you always want to make sure you inspect those before every day. And that brings us to the blast nozzle. So let's check out the blast nozzle. This is an Ultra 6. You always want to check the threads on the blast nozzle and make sure they're not locked up. You want to use a coupling gasket when possible to make sure you get a proper seal. If not, it'll wear out your coupling gasket prematurely. Here is a nozzle pressure kit. What you have is a needle. You take the kit, you inject it 3 to 5 feet behind the nozzle into the hose like this, and you'll feel it get easy. When it gets easy, you will start blasting and you will feel, or you will watch the gauge rise to your current blast pressure. And that is what you call blast pressure at the nozzle. You always want to make sure you have the safety for the needle so nobody gets harmed. And that brings you to the orifice size. So how do you know your nozzle's worn out? Well, you use an orifice analyzer gauge. And what you do is you mark it with a pencil and you scrape it on the inside of the nozzle, and it will show markings which has a measurement on the gauge and will show you how worn out your nozzle is. A worn out nozzle leads to lower pressure at the blast nozzle and harder work on your air compressor, which kills production. And that completes our blast components checklist. I hope this helps you in the field. We have these available on the website, or feel free to give us a call and we'll mail you some.